Hello, my name is Michelle and Eve, and the vulnerable population that I chose to discuss are students who have English as their second language. First, we're going to talk about some common myths in dealing with those who are trying to acquire English as their second language. The first one is students can learn quickly by being exposed and surrounded by native language speakers, and this goes on into the second one as well. It is important that they're exposed to the new language and that they're brought into casual conversation. But casual conversation includes slang and different terminology than it would on a test and academically. So the second myth is that being able to converse comfortably should show that you can succeed academically. Well, in grammar it's very different. In sentence structure, in most languages, a, an, and the is not included, the articles, and then it just depends on how you're saying a statement. The sentence structure in their language can be completely different from what it is in English. So another myth and stereotype is that students should be able to speak the language before coming to America. Well, if a child is coming with their family, that may not be an option, and they may be forced to be in a bilingual speaking school or an English speaking school without any control or any prior learning. And that is why in the research that I have concluded, the one problem there is that with the funding cuts and trying to impress such inclusive learning, then there are 3.5 million children that are identified as limited English proficiency enrolled in U.S. schools. But because there is a lack of personnel to teach those students, they are forced into mainstream classrooms without their ESL teachers after just 2 years of learning the language. So how can we make that easier for them? Well, one of the struggles, it broke it down into essays in this article, and some of the struggles that the students face were the challenge to fit in, and they were embarrassed to speak their native language even when their parents would come pick them up from school because the other students didn't accept them as well. And when you're talking about language shock, it's the common anxiety when language learners are trying to adjust to their new environment, and it's very difficult to adapt culturally, academically, socially, and do all this at once. So I'm going to go into some steps about how teachers can make the experience more successful for them. And one important thing is that ESL students do better in groups, and if you are expecting them to take several notes, it would be helpful to give them another format of those notes, perhaps a PowerPoint, or allow them to copy someone else's notes so they can take it home and break down the English to make sure they understand it, as well as being able to comprehend what they need to know for the test, and simply making the test into simple language for the student to understand, because as we know, if we don't understand what the test is asking for, then we can't very well expect to pass that test. So you want to provide opportunities for success. You want to read books aloud and tell the students in the classroom to speak slowly so that everyone can understand. Foster an appreciation for cultural diversity. And the one article that I liked was called 8 Things Your ESL Students Need But Won't Tell You. And I'm just going to go over a few of those. Giving a student who is learning English time to absorb a question and not drawing attention to the fact that they have problems with the language is one. And again, just not focusing so much on their grammar and making it easier for them so they don't feel overwhelmed and that they can succeed. And you have to assess the needs and empathize and foster a sense of belonging, which is something that we should do for every student. And lastly, I want to talk about you have to think about the child's health and well-being, and there are difficulties for English language learners, but there may also be a need to address things further to make sure that that student doesn't have a learning disability. So, a learning difficulty may result from the environment. It may result from something that can be addressed right away, just adapting something simple so that their needs are met. And then there may need to be further evaluation to see if you can individualize that child's learning process even further if they have special needs. And pairing students together again is important. Reading things orally so they can understand them is important. And I just want to end with this quote. We worry about a child tomorrow, but we forget that they have to get there and that they are a child today. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and have a happy Thanksgiving.